I end up getting my girlfriend at the time pregnant. Okay. She's pregnant. And I'm like, okay, life's real. Like I got to be able to make something happen. I have no benefits. I have nothing. Literally nothing. It's like I have nothing. So I'm like,
Tez, there's a verse in the Bible about Enoch. It says, Enoch was 65 years old, and then he had kids, and then he walked with the Lord. And it's, I don't know where you're going with the story, but it's crazy how the responsibilities of our life, the big ones, can be a wake-up call to, okay, I've got to be more intentional. I've got to do the bigger thing. I can't continue to just drift through life, taking it as I can. It's time to be a man, right?
Yes, sir.
Step up.
And it comes back to that word on your shirt, intentional, right? It came to be intentional. So I said, okay, I got to walk with intent. I can't just live life not worrying about tomorrow, because it's now bigger than just me and my girlfriend, or just bigger than just me. And I'm like, all right, man, I got to figure something out. So God thing again, a few colleagues in the office was like, hey man, you're doing really good now, but you need to prepare for the winter. I was like, what's that mean? Like, well, realtors don't sell as many houses, which means we won't get as many policies. And I'm like, oh. I didn't know that. Thanks for telling me. I got a kid on the way. And they still don't know that, right? So I'm like, oh crap. And I'm like, okay. I go back in the lab and I'm like, what's going to happen in the wintertime? Who needs houses in the wintertime? Builders. Because people still build houses in the wintertime, and they prepare for spring. They'll get done. So people are still buying houses. So I can at least bind some policies and get paid on those if the policy takes, when it takes in effect. So I can at least have money to anticipate when they close. People are still buying houses. So I said, okay, I need to find builders. Boom, found it. I didn't tell anybody else that. I was like, I'm gonna go straight to builders. So I got on Indeed. On LinkedIn. And I typed in home builders, Oklahoma. It'll bring up all these profiles. I copy and paste message, hit them all. All of the ones I can. And this young lady reached out to me. Her name was Tara Porter. Tara's a realtor in Oklahoma. She's actually going to be speaking at OKC Evolve because I cannot repay her enough. Tara was like, hey, Tez, absolutely, let's sit down. Let's get some coffee or something. So we got coffee and we hung out a few times, and she kind of told me what she was doing, and I had no interest. I simply wanted insurance policies. That's all I wanted from Tara. Like, a relationship, sure, but at the end of the day, ultimately being transparent, I had to make money. Yes, I had to make money. So, I'm like, yeah, Tara, awesome. All the things you're talking about with the builder, and that's why cool. That's awesome. Yeah. Do you know anybody trying to get insurance? And she's like, I'm actually just a marketing person, but I think you'll be good at this job. And I was like, oh man, again, somebody's trying to recruit me.
That's why she wanted to sit down?
No, originally she just wanted to know who I was and everything like that. And I'm like, man, and we're talking. She's like, I think you'll be good at this. And I'm like, no, I won't. Like, I don't know anybody trying to buy a house. I'm good now. I got relationships with mortgage originators and other real estate agents, and I'm good, Tara. Like, I thank you for the offer. I don't know anybody trying to buy houses. Came to me one day. She's like, okay, let's get lunch again. Cool. So she sat down with me and she goes, hey, this is how much money I made last month. She showed me a check for like $16,000. And I was like,
better than three.
Better than three. And I was like, really? She goes, yeah. I go, that's cool. She goes, you're not interested? I said, nope. I'm more interested in like what I've already built here. I already have relationships. I don't need a lot of money. That's not my motivation. I simply just want to be able to take care of home. And I'm still super loyal to the guy at the insurance agency. He gave me an opportunity. We have a good relationship. I know I'm his top producing guy.
Tez, is that really the truth though? That's probably what it was, right? The loyalty to him more than $3,000 a month.
Yes.
Right? And that's what we often find with staying at jobs is who we're working for.
Yep.
Not necessarily the terms.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
That's often the case. And you had a known with him.
Yep.
And you would have to go to an unknown, start over, even though she could prove to you you can make 5 times as much money. So I think if you were to look back, you could say, and it's a lesson to us as business owners to treat people fairly and with respect, because that's what keeps people committed more than the money, right?
Yes, it does. 100%.
We think we can give them money.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you were willing to stay for 5 times less because of your loyalty to him, because he was a cool guy.
Super cool dude. Until some things happened.
But
exactly. ... And I'm like, no, I'm not interested. Well, one night I'm thinking about it, and the kid thing's still getting real, right? It's getting further.
Baby bumps getting bigger.
Yeah. And I'm like, I need insurance. I gotta have insurance. I gotta have insurance. That was a big thing for me. And I'm like, I started looking into how much insurance costs, and I was like, whoa, this is crazy. I can't afford that. And man, she sends me a video, and it was the owner of Roush Coleman. His name is John Roush. And he's talking about it being a faith-based organization. And that sold me. I was like, okay, well, God's speaking to me. I'm sitting here. I need this. I need, and he talks about how important faith is and how important, putting it before business and all that stuff. I'm like, wow, man. Like, God's voice couldn't be louder. So I walked in.
Just a second. Take me there. Take me to your relationship with Jesus.
Okay. When
did that begin? How did that get to this point?
Yeah. So I struggled and wrestled with my relationship with Jesus for a very long time. I remember being young back in the day, rewind back to, ages 8, 9, 10, all that. My grandma always took us to church. Our cousin had a church, and she would take us to church, and I was bored. I wasn't paying attention. My grandma had this thing where she would pinch you in church. And she would sit behind us intentionally so she can watch us, and she would pinch us, like, pay attention, Yep. Or she would grab our ear or something, like, pay attention. So I would just remember. So when I thought about church, I thought about getting pinched all the time. I was like, golly. So, but I always felt, I was always ignorant. And I say this because I was ignorant to the fact that death and the end of life could happen to anybody at any age. I was ignorant thinking that I'll have time for God. I have time later. I just want to live the life I want to live now. I'll get to God when I remember the age. It was 24. I told myself, I'm 17. I'm 18 now. I remember I got my ears pierced. My dad was just not happy. But the only reason I desired a relationship with God is because I desired a relationship with the guy who I thought was my dad at the time, and that's Tez Arbertha. He was a minister. After living a life of gangbanging and sins and all that stuff, he became a minister, and I knew that was like a place that I could have to relate with him.
Okay.
Early on. So my relationship with God became important because I just wanted a relationship with him. And he was like, God's important. And so then I began to pray, and I started to really, pray over our food and things like that for my family when he wasn't even around.
You're 24?
No, this is when I was younger, like kind of developing that relationship. And then by the age of 23, 24, fast forward. So I've always had like this thing in the back of my mind where I feel like God was guiding my steps, but I never had an intimate relationship with him. So 24, I get that video, and I got a girl who's pregnant, and I'm like, all right, God, let's do it. Let me see. And I just remember at the time how important this kid was to me. And I ended up going to like a softball game Tara invited me to. It was a company softball game. And I was like, here I am, this insurance guy coming out, and I was like hoping to get more policies right. I got all these relationships with everybody. And I met a girl named Amanda. She was an area sales manager at the time. And Amanda loved me. She was like, oh, you're great. You're awesome. And Tara's like, hey, I'm thinking about, he's thinking about coming over. And she was like, oh, yeah, I don't need an interview. I love him as a person. He seems cool. He needs one interview, and that's with Kevin. That's my business partner at Local Guys now. Well, at that time, rewind. So she's like, he just needs an interview with Kevin. Interview with Kevin. They hire me. They send me an offer letter. Check this out. I still haven't told you yet. Offer letter comes through in our fax machine at the office because I didn't have a fax machine at home. And at the time, they still sent offer letters that way. No, they sent it through the email, and I printed it. That's what happened. And I printed it, but I guess I forgot that it was back there. And a guy in the office brought it and he was like a partner already. And he just kind of put it down.
This is at your previous job.
This is at the insurance agency.
Oh, man.
He just set it down, and he just looked at me, and he was like, and just walked out. And I was like, he texts me. He's like, hey, when are you going to tell Judd? And I was like, I haven't made a decision yet. And he's like, okay. That's all I said. So I sat down with Judd. I said, hey, man, dude, you know I've got a kid on the way? He's like, yep. I'm like, I don't have benefits here, man. He's like, yep. I'm like, I got presented an opportunity where I'm going to have benefits, and I thought he was going to be happy for me. I really thought he was going to be happy for me. And he wasn't. He wasn't.
That's hard.
It's hard. It really broke my heart because I'm like, dude, I could have left a long time ago, you know? And he was like, cool, dude. Well, I mean, what? You know? And I was like, well, dude, I mean, I have a base salary there where they're going to offer me pretty much what I have to grind here to make per month. And then anything above that is just icing on the cake, bro. He's like, okay. I mean, if you need $2,000 a month, I can make sure you make that. I mean, I can just pay you that. I was like, it's not about that, brother. Like, it's not about that. And in my mind, I'm thinking, like, if you could afford that, why didn't you just do that already, right? Like, I have to come to you now with this offer that, you know. But I'm like, all right, man. I said, look, dude, I really need benefits. I have to have benefits. He's like, all right. I mean, so what? I go, I've got like 2 more houses that are supposed to close, and I can have their policy. It would really help me out financially if I could just not leave until those close. So this is more of like a 2 weeks than it is a. He's like, no, I'm not gonna need you that long. And I'm like, okay, all right, bro. and I reach for the keys in my pocket. I'm like, I'm just gonna give you the key back to the office. He goes, oh no, you don't have to do that now. I'm like, nah, bro, it's okay. You made yourself clear. Gave him the key. I was like, I'm out. So I went cleared out my office and I left. And I'll never forget just how cold I was treated when I said I want to do something for myself and my family. And the story, so I go work there for a couple months, and that's the entire reason I left. And she's 8 months pregnant, and we find out that the baby actually didn't make it. Baby actually passed away. So December.
In the last trimester.
December 2016, she had to deliver a stillborn baby. It was the toughest thing I experienced in my entire life. It was a time where I couldn't tell a story without bawling, you know what I mean? But the entire reason I put it all on the line is for a kid that's no longer here. You know what I mean? And I remember going to the doctor's office, man, and just sitting there with her and her having to deliver a baby that we both knew wasn't alive. You know what I mean? It was really, really tough. But that following year, God really showed up. Me and the girl, we were together for like 4 years before that. And I remember the division president for Roush Coleman called me in. And he goes, Tez, I've never shared this with anybody because I experienced the same thing. He's like, one or two things is going to happen. It's going to bring you really close or it's going to tear you apart. Like, okay. He gave me everything. You know, he told me way more than just that.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And dude, it definitely tore us apart because I they gave me 2 weeks off, but I only took 2 days. And I went back to work and I poured everything into work. Like I had to, man. And I grieved differently. And I think that really affected my relationship is because she's like, you're not even bothered. You know, she wanted me to, she wanted to see more pain. She went, I don't know, but I had pain. I just didn't show it to her because my dad told me that I couldn't. He's like, hey, you gotta be strong for her. You gotta be strong for her. So, you know, just stay strong.
You know, it's hard, Tez, because I think as men, we have this misconception of what manhood looks like. And it isn't, it's being the tough guy. And it isn't empathizing a lot of times or having that compassion. And that's what's so hard is our culture teaches us that we got to man up, right? Tell it to our boys when they're this big. And I struggle with it. I mean, all my kids, I got 6 kids and, you know, they were sick last week with the stomach bug. You think they're coming to dad? No. Where are they at?
They're with mom.
They're all with mom. And they're with mom because that's where they're getting the compassion. So I do think it's like you did what most of us men do. We bury it with work or whatever. Sometimes we turn to other substances. I mean, lots of things.
Yep.
We could list them all.
Yep.
But I think it's good that you said what you said. You identified it. You know, you went back to work because that's how you dealt with it.
Yep.
If you could rewind, would you do it any different?
Man, for who I am today and the family that I have today.
Well, I know that.
I would have to say no.
Yeah.
I would have to say no. Because the way I deal with pain today is very similar. I think what I would have changed is my grieving process.
Yeah. And that's...
I would have definitely changed that. I didn't grieve my child. I didn't go to his grave for over a year. Her family actually owned a funeral home. So her dad came and got our child.
And took care of it.
And took him. Yep. And we came and saw him like a week later, you know, out of the freezer. Anyway, he was in like a freezer, you know. And they buried him after that. And that day was the last day I saw him for a very long time. You know, I didn't go out to his grave for a long time. I just focused on work. And man, I worked, you know, and to be honest with you, Marty, that year I was on pace to make like $40,000. The following year I did over $160,000. And it was a complete culture shock for me. Nobody in my family was making that kind of money. I had never seen that much money in my life. It was a lot. I mean, and life was really simple. Life was really simple for me. So I was able to do a lot of things and have a lot of experiences, like take my grandma on her first, you know, family vacation and do those things. And it transformed my life. But it was a lot of pain, man, lead up to that point. And we did break up. And that following year, I sold more houses than anybody in our division at Roush Coleman. I placed second in the entire organization. They're in multiple states. And it changed a lot for me. But what really hit home is when I finally grieved my son. But that's how I got into real estate. I put a lot on the line, and, you know, here we are.
The circling back to the pain.
Yep.
In regards to this podcast, Killing Complacency, a lot of times we have to get to the point where we experience that amount of pain, where we're willing to make the shift and live more intentional.
Yeah.
For me, a couple of years ago, I started running. I'd always say I'm not a runner. I hate running. It hurts. Terrible. But I was getting old. I was getting fat. Every day I'd wake up, my body would ache. And I was like, I got to do something. But it was that pain. And that's a small scale compared to stillborn child and all that. But just making the point that pain a lot of times is what gets us out of the ruts and into, you know, it's a pain point of I've got to do something different. Something's got to change. And I don't know how we can get people to understand that without experiencing the pain. You know, if you could just tell all your coaching students, hey, do as I say, not as I do, or not necessarily that, but but hey, you don't. Here's a fast track.
Yep.
This is, and you do that. Here's your script. Say this, do that. This is the easy. This is the Tez way. This is the easy way. This is how we do it at Verified. But not everyone always listens.
And Marty, there's no better teacher than experience. You know, I mean, I could coach you up. I could tell you everything, but until you got that seller who's not happy and you have to deal with it, it's like you don't know what it's like, you know. So you have to be able to experience it. And I think that I wouldn't want anybody to experience the pain that I experienced there. You know, but like you said, there is
and there's a soft place in your heart, Tez, for people that experience that. I guarantee that. And if you had a colleague, a friend, whoever, experience that, you would be way more empathetic than somebody who hasn't. And that's a cool thing about pain. If once we embrace it, once we let it do its work, is it makes us better people.
I heard something the other day, and I always say your story is a testimony. But I heard somebody the other day say, before your testimony comes a test. And that was a test. Like you said, there was a lot of vices I could have turned to. I don't know what I would have done had I not had something to turn to like real estate. And at the time, I'm still unsure. I still don't know how to sell. I still don't, I didn't know these things. So I just worked harder than everybody else. I stayed later.
Right.
I got there earlier. And it had a really bad effect on my relationship. But man, it really put
What
me in
year
a
is
strong
this?
place.
This
2017.
2017.
This is 2017. Yep. Never forget it.
And you would know better than me probably. Real estate, we've gone through some cycles.
Yep.
It's picking back up in 2017, right? But not like 2020.
No, not like 2020.
It's definitely climbing.
Yep.
From 2013.
Mm-hmm.
It's coming. Rosh, how good of a year did they have that year? Do you know?
Yeah. 2017, they probably closed about 520.
Okay.
Yeah, about 520, which is a lot of houses.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a lot of houses. 2021, they were doing like 1,100. They did like 1,100 that year. It's crazy. But yeah, Roush is doing really well. I mean, they build an entry level product.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't matter if you're downsizing or if you're buying your first home. They're right there.
They're in Guthrie right now.
Are they?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. Developing.
Okay. There's
small lots, and they're to market fast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They build a house in 90 days.
Mm-hmm.
They can, breaking ground to completion, 90 days, 120 days most.
1,100 times a year.
Yeah. Yeah. And they got it down to a system, Like, that's something I respect about that company. I learned a lot from them. But, yeah, man, that is, young to the entry level of getting into a game.
Tell me about your foundation. You had the football foundation.
Yeah, man. So
I
I
did that last year.
Yeah. So I want to start a nonprofit for it. I actually just started like an LLC, but I've been talking to a few buddies of mine who's into sports, and they're like, "Do you got to make it a nonprofit?" But basically, man, I wanted to use something that inspired me, like football, to let kids know that they can do more than sports. Because I remember the emotion that I went to between age 16 to like 23, 24 before I found sales, I guess 22 before I found sales. It was turmoil, man. I was drinking, I was hanging out with buddies. I didn't know what I was going to do. And remember, my buddy is a quarterback at OU.
Yeah.
It didn't get more, he had fame, he had it all, man. So I would go down and hang out with him on campus, but I didn't go to OU there. I didn't go to school there. So, we would go to clubs, we would do all the things that any high school guy ever wanted to do in college, at the collegiate level, at the college in our state.
Yeah.
Aside from OSU, somebody would probably combat that. But in Norman, man, so it was a lot of fun. And it's like, but internally, I still was empty. I was like, man, what this is cool for him, what am I gonna do? I can't be his friend forever. It's just a friend of a pro athlete. I didn't want that for my life. So I'm like, what am I gonna do? And
so the foundation.
Yep.
It's to fill that void.
It's
for
to
kids?
fill that void. So I talk about that because with the foundation, with those kids, the reason I put the camp on is I had my buddy from high school. He came out. He played for the LA Rams for some time. I had a NFL tight end who played with Tom Brady and won a championship with Tom Brady come out. We had 6 pro guys come out. And I knew that would make the parents go, oh, my gosh, I want my kids to be there. And I knew it would make the kids be like, oh, my goodness, I want to come. And when they got there, I was like, I tricked y'all. We're going to have a camp. We're going to have a good time. But I want to talk to you about something that changed my life in case football doesn't. And I talked about real estate. Mm-hmm. So to me, the foundation is bringing athletes in, guys who's going to get the eyeballs and bring them so I can tell them about something else that you may turn to or something you can have later, even if one kid hears it. I wish somebody would have told me about it. So I do want to be that person that I wish I had to educate me on sports. More sports can go or can't go, and something you can do.
And now you want everyone in real estate.
I want everybody in real estate. At whatever level.
Wholesale's the easiest to get into, right? Lowest risk.
Depending on who you ask. Yeah.
Lowest risk.
Lowest risk, yes.
And then what would you say? Flips? Flips is still a job.
Flips is still a job.
Then there's rentals.
Yeah, I would say
Rentals is
creative
long-term.
finance.
Creative finance.
Creative finance and sub 2 after the wholesaling. It's complicated. You got to know your documents. You got to have the right stuff. With the right mentor, you'll be protected and you'll be buttoned
follow
up.
pace, right?
Yeah, follow. Yeah. I met that guy. He's a good guy. But, yes, follow pace, whatever. Get your information, however you get it. But the level of risk of flips, man, like you got to be educated, man. You gotta know what you're doing. You got to be educated or you could lose your lunch quick.
Got to run your numbers up.
Yes,
flips.
you do. Yes, and you got to manage contractors, and you got to know what you're doing, especially when you got guys that are private money guys, and they know what they're doing.
Yeah,
you can lose it, but yeah. I think lowest barrier of entry, wholesaling. If you can learn some creative stuff, you still don't have a ton of risk, aside from what is it, do and sell clause and things like that. But educate your seller, and then educate yourself. You graduate to flips. You graduate to holding properties. Yes, absolutely. Yes.
But your heart, what I think is, I mean, you've obviously have done well with real estate.
Thank you.
But your heart is coaching and teaching and breaking it down, dumbing it down, so anyone can do it, right?
Absolutely.
And making it, I mean, and I guess I see that in your life as you've not only have created this wealth for yourself, but then you've shared it by giving back and giving it back in education or the foundation or, coaching people. So
100%, man.
So it's really cool to see. I mean, the grand scheme, you didn't have a lot going for yourself necessarily at 10, 12 years old. But you knew there was more out there, and you kept pushing and you listened. A lot of times we don't listen to people, but you listen to people. You listen to the Indeed guy, and you got into sales, and you had these other opportunities, and you went with them. And I would argue, in regards to that pain point, that stillborn child, you could have just as well turned toward substance, anything.
Yep.
And a lot of people do, Tez. A lot of people fly off the handle and do other things at that point because that's how they pacify it. Yep. And I know you kind of did with work.
Yep.
By your testimony. That's what I would default to. I love to work. But and we actually have to be cautious of that too.
Yep.
Because work can be a threat to our marriage and to our loved ones, as well as alcohol or drugs or anything. It is more profitable.
Yes, it is. It's more profitable. And being young, that's where my heart was. Not experiencing it, not having the type of finances that I could go make. I didn't know that I could ever tell somebody that it's not all about money.
Yeah.
I didn't think I would ever have that emotion or know what that felt like. And a lot of times until you get the money, you don't know what it feels like. So you think that that's what you want. And a lot of times it's not.
Well, it's vanity of vanity. You think it's that until you get it. And you're like, you know what?
This is empty.
There's more to life. I want to get back.
Yep.
Tez, we're going to wrap this up.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. But 2 questions.
Yes, sir.
Final 2. What would be your top book recommendation? If you could, and you can say the Bible, but let's do, if you're going to say Bible, let's do the Bible plus.
Okay.
Because that's the easy default.
Absolutely.
That you would say, hey, everyone should read this book, or this book influenced me. What book would it be?
I hate to give the cliche investor book, the Rich Dad Poor Dad. So I'm gonna go a little deeper, and I'm gonna go How to Win Friends and Influence People. When you learn how to win friends and influence people, your life transforms. It's a good book.
You know that Rich Dad Poor Dad? I think that's a mindset book.
Yeah.
People always say it's a real estate book. I think it's a mindset book. It makes your mind change. and
I like that.
and how you see things. I think it's, for me, in looking back, it's much more mindset than.
That's what turned the light bulb on for me.
Yeah.
I wasn't reading.
It was mindset.
I was not reading books. I didn't know anything about it. But I got referred to that book while working at Roush because I was like, what can I do with my money? And somebody gave me that book and I read it and it changed my life for me.
I'm going to do something.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, last question. You got 24 hours to live.
Okay.
For whatever reason.
Okay.
You found out in the crystal ball you're going to die tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
You have one message. One message to give to the world. What's your message? What do you want the world to hear from Tez?
Wow. I think the message I would leave on my deathbed is that relationships are more important than money. That's it.
Relationships over money.
Relationships over money. And that's personal relationships. That's friendships. It's just way more impactful. It'll get you in places that shortcutting to go get money won't. And it's a lot more fulfilling. If you make great relationships with a lot of people and you never make a dime, it's a lot more fulfilling sitting on that deathbed.
So you guys heard it from Tez. Focus on those relationships. Be intentional there.
Absolutely.
Put the phone away tonight. Don't scroll.
I love it.
Spend time with your wife or husband.
Yep.
Well, thank you, Tez. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely, my man. Thank you.